Hey, Anthony here. Today we'll be reacting to the Lex Fridman podcast. He's one of my favorites. I'm a huge fan of his podcast. And we'll be diving into his latest episode, the one that he had with Chamath Palihapitiya. And that one could be a tough one to say at times, but I hope that was quite close. Anyways, Chamath, if you're not familiar, he's a previous executive of Facebook, and he is the founder of Social Capital, a venture capital firm, and he's also involved in SPACs, which are special purpose acquisition companies. So he's definitely a profound thinker in his field, in business, venture capital, investments, and so forth. But I do think that that traverses into so many other arenas, such as that what we'll discover here today with a huge question that Lex asks, which is, what is the meaning of life? So I think there's a lot of really cool things we can tap into. And I just wanted to say that the purpose of this is, if you saw my first video, was to expand the horizons of philosophy, to dive into new concepts, ideas, to question the abstractions that we think we may already know. So let's dive in and let's get to it.
What do you think? Let me sneak this question in there. What do you think is the meaning of life?
Always a big one.
Well, why are we here?
Sorry, just to pause this super quickly. You knew Chamath right off the bat. It's like, come on, man. I don't know. No one knows. That's what's so great about it.
Look up at the stars and think about like the big why question.
I think that it's a chance to just enjoy the ride. I don't think it really, I don't believe in this idea of legacy that much.
Okay, hold on. Some quick note that I just wanted to make there. So he talks about enjoying the ride. Very fair. I deeply appreciate that sentiment. What's interesting about enjoyment, though, is I feel like there's so many ways you can dissect enjoyment. So, for example, there's the hedonistic way, just diving into physical pleasures and so forth, and that could be seen as enjoyable. Then you have the spiritual route, finding the inner peace, which is also seen as enjoyment. And then also there is a sense of reward system, similar to how the brain works. We have reward systems, and that's how we perceive enjoyment. And when we get those dopamine hits, it's not just the reward itself, it's actually the drive towards the reward, the anticipation, where we fuel up with that enjoyment as well. So enjoyment, it could be really tricky at times, but something that I just asked you guys, what kind of enjoyment do you find yourself most resonant with? And in that matter, what are some ways you think that you could shift your perspective into understanding enjoyment in a more thorough way so that you can experience possibly a full meaning of life as we all look towards this question? But back to Chamath.
I think it's a real trap.
So do you think you'll be forgotten by history?
I hope so. I really, really hope so. Because if you think about it, there are 2 or 3 people that are remembered for positive things, and everybody else, it's all negative things. And the likelihood that you'll be remembered for a positive thing is harder and harder and harder. And so the surface area of being remembered is negative. And then the second, what will it matter? I'll be gone. I really just want to have fun, do my thing, learn, get better. But I want to reward myself by feeling like, oh, that was awesome. I've told this story many times, and I have put, again, my own narrative fallacy on top of this. But, Steve Jobs' sister wrote this, obit in the New York Times when he died. And she ends it by saying his last words were, oh, wow, oh, wow, oh, wow.
Look at that. The Steve Jobs. Oh, wow, oh, wow, oh, wow. I say oh wow to that. And that leads us back to the question of meaning of life. Is it about fulfillment, let's say? Is it about how much you can experience within this finite amount of time that we have? Is it trying to take in the awe and the beauty of it all? And I find that really fascinating that he said, oh wow. You possibly would hear a quote of what his deepest reflection might be, or what next iPhone to create. But no, oh wow is an intriguing one to me, because I feel like that's where we feel most in tune with life, is when we're struck by its beauty, is when we feel like we have this urge to connect with it, with the energy of life itself, if you may, or the essence of it. And what taps us into those are, you could say, flow states, you could say, of course, pursuing your passion, which can lead to a flow state. But I don't have these answers either.
That seems like an awesome way to die. You're surrounded by your friends and family. Not the fact that he died, obviously. But in a moment where what I read into it was your family was there. Maybe you thought about all the cool shit that you were able to do. And then, you just started the simulation all over again. And so,
Yeah.
just on the off
Simulation
chance that that's
argument.
true, I don't want to take this thing too serious.
Quick tangent. What do you guys think about the simulation theory? Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of it because I feel like whether it's a simulation or not, we wouldn't know. It would just, not that we wouldn't know. It's just that it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't make a difference to us because whatever it is that we're perceiving, whatever the blueprint of the reality and the universe itself is, you call it simulation, you call it natural organic life. It's all the same to us. It's all that we've been able to perceive so far. So we don't understand anything else. So I do think a little bit of a weak argument. I think the better question in correspondence to the simulation theory would possibly be then leading to the ontological argument of who is God, what is God, is there a creator? And I just feel like it leans just similar to that pathway because the interest isn't exactly in the simulation of the universe. I think it's more so along the lines as who's behind it, who's beyond it and creating it, which again is an age-old question as well. So I don't find the simulation theory a new modern concept. Fascinating in many ways.
You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
enjoy it.
So you're not afraid of it? The end?
Get in tomorrow. Get in right now.
So every
Let's do
day you can go and you're happy. You're happy with the things you've done.
There are obviously things I want to do that I haven't done. But there are no gaping things.
Do you think happiness is proportionate to the acceptance we have of finite time? Or do you think it's experiencing the vast amount of joy, let's say, in that finite amount of time? Because he's, someone who's achieved so much. I'm not sure actually if that has a vital role in his view that it could all end. Maybe he's always retained that role growing up, or that view. But I find that very interesting that he almost has no fear of it. I find many of us do. Definitely not an irrational fear. We don't even understand what extends beyond that. So how can we comprehend it? How do we understand what it means to live a meaningful life? But then again, it's also what offers more meaning to life is knowing that it's finite. But I'm not sure if the expansiveness of time reduces the significance of something. That's where I get a little mixed up with this argument about like there's a finite amount of time, that's what makes it meaningful. And I understand that to some capacity, but what I don't understand is the fact that the more amount of time that happens, or the more amount of space that there is, let's say within the universe, the smaller that space, the space is within that large space, or the smaller the time within that large time, seems to make it less significant. I'm not sure. Those are two realms of thought. Still trying to dissect that in the midst of this video here, but meaning. All back to meaning.
I've really, really, really been in love. Total gift. There have been moments where I've really, really felt like everybody else. There have been moments where I have deep, deep, deep joy and connection with my children. There are moments where I've had incredible giggling fun with my friends. There's moments where I've been able to enjoy really incredible experiences, wine, food, all that stuff. Great. I mean, what more do you want? Like, I could keep asking for more, but I would just be a really crappy human being at some point. You know what I mean? It's enough.
Yeah.
It's enough.
Yeah.
It's enough.
This life is pretty beautiful if you allow yourself to see it. Yeah.
It's really great, and it's better than it's ever been. For most of us, actually.
I think right there he might be referring to Steven Pinker when he came out with a study, I believe this is a few years ago now, referring to how despite the exposure that we have to the violence and the tragedies that do happen in our world today, it still is, relatively speaking, much more safer and less violent than it was in the past. And I believe he got some flack for that. I don't have his numbers or his variables that he used to back them up. You could go search that up, Steven Pinker's study. But yeah, I do believe that that's what he's referring to here. It's the best time in that regard, especially when we consider the amount of abundance there is. But there is a level to that abundance, because the more that you're chasing, the more you're empty inside. So someone in his position, very grounded, deeply grounded.
pretty nice.
And all of the millennials and Gen Zs, you're about to get a boatload of money from your parents.
Daddy's money right there.
And you better figure out how to be happy before you get that money.
There we go.
Because otherwise you will be miserable.
Get a lot of Dairy Queen. No, that only worked the first time.
It worked 2 times in grade 5 and grade 6. My God, that next year, Lex, I worked my ass off. I'm like, but I could never bring myself to ask her.
Yeah.
And then she did it, and I was like, man, this woman's Miss Bruni. This woman was a gem.
That must be a inside joke from a previous part in the episode that I did not see. Funny nonetheless. But I think we'll cap it there. One question I did want to leave you with that's always toggled my mind with the concept of the meaning of life, this grand question that we also can't really wrap our heads around, but we might, maybe one day in evolution and the more we question and think about these. But do you think we're even equipped to understand the meaning of life? Do you think that our language, our linear sense of reason, the way that we conceptualize objects in 3D, do you think that this enables us to understand what meaning is? Or do you think that we need another modality, another vehicle to understand meaning? Or if meaning is meaningful at all?